Good evening and welcome to the Football Diehards Friday DFS show. What is this? Divisional round. And of course, this will be Brady and I's last show. And we've got, of course, the talented Jason Brady and the old man of fantasy, Emil Kadlec. How's it going, Mr. Brady?
It's going pretty good. Really looking forward to this slate. I'm glad they put it all on one instead of splitting up between 2 days. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It should be fun.
Yeah, they almost had to, I guess, but we'll talk later. It's when it gets down here, I think it's kind of interesting what we can make of 8 teams. So that's going to be quite interesting. And we'll talk injuries as we go through the games. So I guess we'll start with quarterbacks.
Yep, sounds good. So there's a clear option at quarterback this week. It's going to be Patrick Mahomes going against the Browns at 8,000, and he is averaging 27.3 DraftKings points. And in this game, it's a 57-point game total. And, I mean, Mahomes is an elite QB with an elite matchup against the Browns passing defense that gave up over 500 yards, like 4 or 5 touchdowns to Ben Roethlisberger last week. So I can only imagine what Patrick Mahomes is going to do to the Browns defense. I know they're getting Ward back, but, I mean, the Browns' defense looked so bad last week, so I think Mahomes is going to have a lot of success. Of course, he is the highest-priced quarterback on the slate, and for an extremely good reason, so I like Mahomes a lot.
Yeah. Let's see where we're at here. I was off doing something. Number one owned quarterback, 49.7%, so roughly 50% owned on DFS, so.
Oh, yeah.
That's high. Obviously, but again, we only have 8 teams. You only have 8 quarterbacks, so you're going to see again a little abnormal scenarios in ownership from typical regular season games.
Yep, but yeah, 50%. I'm going to have a ton of them, but there are some other guys I like a little bit. The next one being Lamar Jackson at 7,600 against Buffalo here. And Lamar is averaging 23.8 DraftKings points per game. I know he had a really slow start to the season, lots of disappointment, especially for me because I have him in season long. But as of late, he's been playing really good. Has that rushing yard upside, rushing touchdown upside, solid stacking options. Marquis Brown, somebody that's been really good. Mark Andrews, somebody that didn't do too well last week, but again, he's a good option there against the Bills here in a game that should score decently high. So I think Lamar Jackson, obviously, you're going to get some nice ownership leverage. He's going to be way lower owned than a Patrick Mahomes, and you're going to get a lot of rushing yard and rushing touchdown upside as well. But obviously, it's really hard to get away from Mahomes. But if I was to do so, I'd have some Lamar Jackson at a cheaper price as well.
Yeah, you only saved $400, but he is owned at 15.5%, which is the third most owned quarterback. But compared to 49 or 50%, that's a significant drop. Yeah. And obviously he's a great one. I think he's motivated. It worried me a little bit. This is what worried me. Tell me what you think. When I see teams so excited about winning a game, they were so thrilled they won that game, like it was we won this game. I start to worry that they're done, that they've accomplished, they've done what they needed to do. I don't really know if that's the case. It just kind of worried me a little bit. What do you think, Brady?
Yeah, I can see that happening, but I mean, I don't know. I think Lamar should be okay.
Yeah, I'm just bringing it up because sometimes you can sense that in teams.
Yeah.
And it worried me. But, last year was such a devastating loss to them. They were such on a roll. They were talking Super Bowl. So I think that just getting through the first game was important to them, and they obviously seemed relieved. So I don't want to be scared. I just thought I'd mention it.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense there. So the next play here, and I'm assuming this is going to be the second highest owned quarterback, it's going to be Mr. Josh Allen going against Baltimore here. I mean, it's a tough matchup, but then again, they had a tough matchup last week against the Colts, did very well. And Josh Allen is sitting at 7,400, so he's cheaper than Lamar, he's cheaper than Mahomes, and he is averaging 27.7 DraftKings points per game, which, believe it or not, that's more than Jackson and Mahomes there. So 50-point game total here. I'm not concerned about the Ravens' defense whatsoever. The Bills have been rolling as of late. Stephon Diggs has been looking amazing. Allen's been looking amazing. And, I like Allen quite a bit as a pivot off of the Mahomes chalk quite a bit. So I'm going to be having a decent amount of Allen as I will with, like, Mahomes and Jackson.
Well, he is the second most owned. He's at 17.5%, so he's just a little above Lamar Jackson. So both those guys are way down from Holmes. The nice thing for Allen is Beasley and Diggs are off the injury report, so they should play. I'm still a little worried about Beasley, and of course you still have John Brown, or John, whatever his name is, who hasn't really played much, but he's healthy. So they're kind of healthy other than Moss And so you got Singletary and Yeldon, which both of those can catch the ball. So that makes that looks good for Josh Allen.
Yeah, I like Josh Allen quite a bit. And then, so mostly for me, it's going to be Patrick Mahomes, my number one. I'm going to have a solid amount of Josh Allen and Lamar as well. And there is one other guy that kind of has some interest for me just based off the price. And that's going to be Baker Mayfield going against Kansas City here. And it is that 57-point game total. So it is the highest total on the slate by about 6.5 points, something like that. And it's a game where they should be coming from behind. They're 10-point underdogs. They should be passing a lot. And I think he's going to be extremely low-owned, and he's extremely cheap. So don't mind some Baker Mayfield pump plays just based off the game script of coming from behind, passing the ball a lot. And he has some decent weapons as well.
Yeah. The 8th most owned quarterback out of the 8 quarterbacks this weekend. 1.2% owned. And even at 5,300, he's that low-owned. So
I love it.
There's a certain there's some attractiveness there.
I like it. They should be coming from behind. They should be passing the ball. So I could see the Chiefs getting out early and then Mayfield just passing the ball a ton. And at 5,300, get a couple touchdowns, hit value there. I don't mind that.
You want me to bring any up, or are you done with the ones you were going to look at?
Mostly those 4 for me. Drew Brees is interesting, but other than that, it's probably gonna be those 4.
Yeah, what's interesting, first I'll just go through these real quick since there's not too many. Aaron Rodgers is 8.8%, so he drops way below Jackson as far as ownership percentage. And then you have Brady and Brees and Goff and whatnot below 3. So they're fairly low owned, and just to point it out, they're less than 3% owned. So
Okay.
FYI.
Yeah. So yeah, mostly those 4 for me, but yeah, there are some other options. Drew Brees, interesting. Tom Brady, interesting, but I just don't know how much I'm going to get there.
Gotcha.
All right, so the running backs here, and up top you have Alvin Kamara. He has 7,900 going against Tampa Bay, and a 51.5-point game total, which is the second highest on the slate. And this is really interesting because we all know Tampa Bay has one of the best, if not the best, run defenses in the league. So I don't know how much success Kamara is going to have in that aspect, but Kamara definitely can catch the ball. We've seen him do it plenty of times, get a lot of targets. He only got 2 targets last week, but in a game where they didn't really need to pass the ball. So I do think they'll be using Kamara a lot in the passing game, which is very valuable there. But what I did notice is there's a lot of cheap running backs I like, and there's a lot of expensive wide receivers I like. So I'm going to be paying down a lot at running back. So I don't know how much Kamara I'm going to have, but if I was to pay up for running back, I think Kamara is a pretty solid option there, just with the pass catching upside and the touchdown upside as well.
Number 2 owned running back, actually, believe it or not, at 35%. I'll hold off who the number 1 is just for a few moments. But yeah, the game strip's different here. I wonder if that's going to hurt. We'll get to him in a minute. Devonte Harris had such a great game last week. I wonder because of this game strip potential and the fact that Kamara didn't really get targeted last week, that could hurt Harris. But we'll get into that when we go through the receivers.
Yeah, I agree. All right, the next guy is going to be Cam Akers for the Rams going against the Packers here, and he's averaging 10.3 points and a 45.5-point game total. So the game total, I guess, is worrisome because it is the lowest on the slate, but it's really hard to ignore the output and the amount of rushing attempts and passing receptions Akers has been getting as of late. They've been giving him the rock a lot. So I think Akers, just based off of the volume alone, is going to be really good here at 5,700. Doesn't matter. They're going to give him the ball a lot. He's going to get 25 to 30 touches total. And at 5,700, I love that.
Yeah, he's the 5th most owned running back at 14.8%. So he's well below the 4 above him. I'm almost surprised. I'm almost surprised he's not more owned because of the volume he got. Maybe people are just insecure about it because, like you said, $5,700, he's going to get opportunities. Green Bay, they didn't, they've had ups and downs against the running games this year, but, they've had probably plenty, it's the playoffs. Things are different. Yeah. It's kind of hard to look behind too much, but this team, Goff, he's got 3 pins in his thumb. They're going to run the ball like they did last week. They're going to attempt to run the ball. And Akers can catch the ball too. So he is a tempting player at $5,700.
Yeah, way too cheap. I don't get that price point. I mean, he's been getting so much volume as of late. So, yeah, I like that play a lot.
Did he go up from last week?
I think he went up a little bit. Last week he was 5,100, so he went up $600.
$600. Oh, that's a significant rise, but still.
Yeah. Yep.
Cool.
Crazy. What was his ownership, did you say?
His ownership was 14.8%. And he's the fifth most. But the ones above him are 36, 35, 31, and 25.
Okay.
So there's a big level there between those top five.
Yes. All right. Yeah, I like that ownership a lot. So the next play is going to be Devin Singletary for Buffalo going against Baltimore here. And he's just really cheap at 4,500, averaging 8.9 DraftKings points per game. But Zach Moss is going to be on the IR, and Singletary should get the majority of the touches here on one of the best offenses in the league. And, I mean, Moss went out last week, and Singletary, I believe, played every single snap after that. So if Singletary's going to be playing a lot on a really good offense in a game that should score decently high, maybe he finds the end zone, I actually don't mind Singletary at 4,500. That's just really cheap there.
Yeah, I was tinkering away, sorry. He is the number one owned running back at 35.9, so he's just a little above Kamara. Obviously, the $4,500 salary is a huge benefit, and with Moss out, so he's at, so it's so weird to put so much on. Sometimes you can't think emotionally because Singletary hasn't really. What did he do last week? Like you said, Moss was in the game. Josh Allen had 11 carries for a touchdown. Singletary only had 3 carries. Moss had 7. So obviously a lot of that's going to go to Singletary. Singletary was targeted 3 times, caught 3. So what does he have to do with the 4,500? What does he got to get? 13 points, 14 points for that to pay? What do you think?
Not much. I mean, to get 3x, he needs about 13.5 for 3x.
Do you think there's a? What do you think about the ceiling for a Singletary in this situation?
I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if he scored a touchdown or 2. I mean, being the only running back for the Bills, pretty much, I wouldn't be shocked if he found the end zone.
Other than the quarterback, that little shit.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, Josh Allen definitely can steal a lot.
Yeah, that's a tempting one. Obviously, people are hot on him with Moss being out.
Yeah, so this next one, curious to hear the ownership on this one. It's going to be Nick Chubb here at 6,600, averaging 19.3 DraftKings points in this 57-point game total, which is the highest on the slate. Yeah, I think it's way too cheap for Nick Chubb here, and I get that this is a really bad game script for him being down, but he was used surprisingly a lot in the passing game last week. He had 4 receptions, 69 yards, and a touchdown, reception touchdown. So would not be shocked if they use Chubb a little bit in the passing game. And like I said, the game script's not appealing, but maybe they do start passing the ball. I mean, I think they should personally.
Yeah. Well, interestingly, Nick Chubb is like the 12th running back owned at 8.2%.
That's crazy. I mean, he has so much upside.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's being split between Hunt and him. Hunt is just above him at 8.7%, which you may talk about later.
Yeah.
And Hunt is only 40. Anyway, we'll talk about that later. But yeah, I'm a little surprised there. That's pretty low. I guess they're scared of Kansas City. Maybe they thought that game was just a nuts game last week against Pittsburgh, and maybe they're just going to get crushed. Everybody thinks they're going to get crushed by Kansas City. Would be my thought process looking at these numbers.
Yeah. It's definitely interesting. I think there could be an edge because last week, I mean, not many people were high on the Steelers' offense, and you needed all of them to win money last week. So,
yeah. And the funny thing, at the start of that game, Hunt's the guy who was getting the goal line carries that at least he got the scores. He didn't get all of them. It was completely backwards at the beginning of that game.
Ain't that something? Yeah, that's crazy. All right, so yeah, the next guy I want to talk about is, in fact, Kareem Hunt here, 4,800. So you're getting a 2,200 savings off of Nick Chubb there, and this is way too cheap for Hunt. Surprisingly, he was 4,800 last week, and I was really high on him. He scored 2 touchdowns, and they didn't price him up, not even $100 here. So same price here, and this is a player that I do think fits the game script of being used in the passing game. The Browns being 10-point underdogs. If they do decide to pass a lot, you'd think that Hunt would be used a lot in the passing game, and Hunt could see some touchdowns as well. I think he has like 13 touchdowns on the year, something crazy like that. So definitely a touchdown threat, averaging 14.2 DraftKings points per week. And I just don't get this price. And you said the ownership already. I don't get the ownership as well. He's so cheap.
8.8, just above Chubb. So both those guys are way down at 4,800. So, the problem with this team is they've got two great running backs. It's a problem for us. It's not a problem for Cleveland. And sometimes it just goes one way and it goes the other. Of course, last week with Pittsburgh, they scored so much. They both were huge. But like I said, Hunt did get some goal line carries and did score too. And, he's a beast too. He gets inside the 10. He just pushes and shoves. He's a monster. I really like. They've got two great running backs. And maybe that will help them, give them a chance in this game.
Yeah, I mean, I
can't. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think they have obviously, I think the Chiefs are going to probably dominate here, but I thought the Steelers were going to dominate last week. So, I mean, anything can happen, really.
Yeah, Kansas City had been kind of winning a lot of close games, but they got the number one seed, they got the bye, they got the time to rest. Those are important things.
Oh, yeah.
And they won it's hard to return to win the Super Bowl, but typically, teams are primed to win 2 years in a row or twice out of 3 years. So, but maybe it'll be, what was the total, the estimated total for this game?
57 points, which is a ton.
Yeah, and it is what's Kansas City expected to win by? How many points?
10. Last time I checked.
Pretty big. So 57, whatever that comes out to. So obviously, there's still a lot of points to be made by Cleveland if those numbers work.
Yeah. So yeah, this next one we talked about a little bit. So the Leonard Fournette situation is really interesting. So he's going to be named the starter. Of course, last week we didn't get really confirmation that Ronald Jones wasn't going to play, and ended up Fournette went off last week. I think he had like 23 total touches, and he's sitting here at 4,100. He was named the starter, but I guess Jones is going to be playing some, so I don't know what to do.
I'm still not sure. The way they talk. He's questionable, but he's probably good to go. But Fournette's the starter.
Okay.
So how do we read that? That's a hard read. Now, when is that game?
I want to say it's the
it's the last game on Sunday.
Last game, okay.
So we may get more information before Sunday morning, and we may get some information before that game. So anyway, maybe you may have more information during the weekend to help you on that one. That's tricky. That's a very tricky situation. There's a couple of these that are very annoying.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if Jones does play and they do end up splitting carries, I'm fine with not playing either of them. I mean, New Orleans has a really good run defense. I think they've given up the second least DraftKings to opposing running backs. So if Jones does play, maybe I won't go there all that much. But, I mean, Fournette could get every single carry. We just don't know. I mean, last week was weird.
Yeah, that's a tough one to call. It really is.
Yeah, so the next one here is going to be Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We talked about this one a little bit. Kind of another tricky situation here. And he is 5,500, very cheap. And I do like this play because of the 57-point game total, kind of because of the game script as well. So he is the starting running back on the best offense in football in a high total. Good game script. They should be out in front, 10-point favorites there. So I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is not a bad play. You said he's questionable, right?
Yeah, he's questionable. And what was the words they used? He's getting better.
Okay.
Which is kind of like, what do you mean by getting better?
Exactly.
That could mean that he's not going to play or that he's going to start. I mean, it's just a little, this motion thing. Now, he is the third most owned running back, 31.4%. So people are expecting him to play.
Oh, wow.
Is this a Sunday game? I think this is a Sunday game. I don't know if you can switch things, if you've got options. So, we may find out a lot more Sunday morning, and we may have a very definitive answer for this. But if he becomes doubtful, or if he becomes gray, I think it's real difficult to pick the other guy in that backfield that would do something. That what do you have? Bell, you've got Darrell Williams, and you got my buddy Thompson, who did great for us in Week 16. But
yeah.
I mean, I don't know how you'd predict that. So difficult situation. Hopefully we'll know more on Sunday morning.
Yep. Hopefully we find out some more info there. And then other than that, don't really have much interest in anybody else. I think Dobbins, I guess, is interesting just because he scores touchdowns. He's kind of cheap. Other than that, nothing really else sticks out.
Yeah, Dobbins is at 10.4%, so he's down there a little bit. Did I have anybody else I was going to talk about? We already talked about that guy. Oh, here's a bizarre idea. T.J. Yeldon, which I talked about earlier. He's going to be playing because Moss is out. $4,000, and he's owned at 5.7%. Every once in a while, this guy blows up in the passing game, and if they get in a position, which hopefully they won't, they're Buffalo, they're supposed to be ahead. I'm just saying, this is this crazy guy who occasionally will get out there and catch a lot of balls. And I guess 4,000 is a pretty cheap number, and 5.7 is not too bad. So, just
definitely
throw that one out there.
Yeah, and you've been on the ones you've been throwing out at like really low ownership. So this could be that one. He has that pass catching upside for sure.
He does. Yeah.
Yes.
I doubt it every time I say these. We're talking about the absurd, but sometimes the absurd happens, and that's what it probably happens every weekend when somebody's winning GPP. Is some guy they played at least one is like, how the heck did you think about starting that guy?
Yep, and that's how you win tournaments. Plays like this. Yeah. I like it.
Anyway, that's the only other one I had.
All right. So, we'll move on to the wide receivers now. And up top, my favorite option, and there's 4 wide receivers I really, really like. That's why I'm kind of putting an emphasis on paying down at running back this week. And the first one's going to be Tyreek Hill, 8,000. He's going to be the second highest owned wide receiver, and he is averaging 22.5 DraftKings points in this 57-point game total. And just an amazing matchup against a really poor Browns passing defense. I remember last week against the Steelers. The Steelers were doing whatever they wanted. All 3 of their Steelers wide receivers, I believe, were in the optimal lineup. And I think Hill's just going to have a field day. I mean, especially without Sammy Watkins. I mean, it's just hard to see Hill not doing good. I know they're getting Ward back, but what's Ward going to do? I mean, maybe it helps a little bit, but he's Tyreek Hill. So give me Tyreek Hill at 8,000. Kind of concerned to hear about the ownership. I think it's going to be pretty crazy here.
Number one owned, 52.5%. So
yeah.
Very similar to our top quarterback that throws the ball to him. It's that's a lot of ownership, but you probably got to consider him in some of your lineups, or a lot of your lineups, I guess. GPP wise, or what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of people, what they're going to do is plug in Mahomes, plug in Hill, plug in Kelsey, and then just build from there. And I mean, it's not a bad idea, but I feel like that's what a lot of people are going to do.
I agree with you. A lot of people are going to do that, but boy, anyway. Yeah, that definitely is something that's going to happen a lot.
Oh, yeah. All right, this next guy is going to be Devonte Adams. I know Kyle was really high on him on the Wednesday show, and I like him a lot as well. The problem is he's more expensive than Hill. I do think the ownership is going to be a lot lower than Hill's. He is averaging 27.2 DraftKings points in a 45.5-point game total, which is over 10-point less total than the Browns Kansas City game. It's just a tough matchup. I mean, the Rams have one of the best, if not the best, passing defense in the league. It could scare some people away here and get decent ownership on Adams. And of course, we know. I mean, I'm not overly concerned about the matchup because I do know that Adams is going to get a ton of volume. He has a lot of touchdown upside as well. So I think Adams is a pretty solid play depending on the ownership, especially if it's kind of low.
Well, he's the number 2 owned receiver at 42.7%. So
not much of a.
Yeah. Not much.
I was going to say not much.
Now, and like you said, he's playing against the Rams, but I'm sure they've planned this out. And Devonte runs a lot of different routes, and a lot of the routes he can run are the short slants and outs. So perhaps they're building some significant number of plays to get him the ball quickly, which they will need to do with the Rams' pass rush. So that's the hope there, because he's their guy, along with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, but the running back, Aaron Jones.
Jones, yep.
So, that's a tough one, but 42%, $8,600, and the Rams.
Yep. Yeah, it's interesting for sure. So this next guy, first of all, you're getting huge savings on Michael Thomas at 6,700 from your Tyreek Hills, from your Devonte Adams, even on your Diggs, you get some savings there. I just really like the price of Thomas here. Like we mentioned last week, I mean, this is someone who was priced at 9K at the beginning of the season, and he's been looking good whenever he does play. He did score 18.3 DraftKings points last week, going against a Tampa Bay passing defense that hasn't looked all that great as of late. And you'd think that since Tampa Bay is really known for their run defense, one of the best in the league, you'd think that the Saints are going to be passing the ball a lot more. And like I said, last week the Saints didn't really need to pass the ball all that much, and scoring 18.3 DraftKings points. I think he had like 6 receptions somewhere around there. I think he can definitely do more than that, and I just don't get this price at 6,700.
Yeah, boy, he was on my list here in case you didn't hit him. Boy, 13.9% owned. He's like the 10th most owned. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You can't count down the rows. Mm-hmm. That's a pretty good situation. He's kind of at a little ceiling. The next guy below him is at 9%, but boy, I think you got to have Michael Thomas in some of your lineups. It's too juicy, for that. What a great situation there.
Yes, I like it a lot. I mean, the price, the total is the second best total on the slate. I like the matchup. I like the ownership. It's going to be way lower ownership.
Pretty good.
Yeah, I like it.
I mean, can you expect it to be down much more? He's like the 10th guy.
Kind of surprising, honestly.
That's pretty low. I'm not sure what they're thinking there.
For Michael Thomas, especially at that price, pretty low there. Yeah, so this next guy, I'm assuming he's going to be the third highest owned, and for a really good reason. I mean, Stephon Diggs going against Baltimore here, which is kind of a tough matchup, but he had a tough matchup last week, did fantastic. He is averaging 22.2 DraftKings points, which is slightly lower than Tyreek Hill, and he's been hot as of late. Like the past couple weeks, he's been looking really, really good. You get a nice savings off of Adams, you get a nice savings off of Hill, and I think there's tons of upside for this game. 50-point game total, I feel like it could kind of shoot out a little bit. Not overly concerned about the defense. I think Stephon Diggs is one of my favorite receivers this week.
Yeah, number 3, you were right. He's at 33.5% owned. So, again, these are obtuse numbers because of only 8 games. So he's fairly well down, Hill and Adams. And remember, we just said Beasley's going to be playing. John Brown's back healthy. So hopefully that'll distract some of the coverage a little bit to those guys. So yeah, that's definitely a tempting play.
Yep, I like it a lot.
I
like
those.
So
much lower owned. I mean, his salary is so much lower. I guess he overall. Devonte Adams has been a phenom, and Hill has too. So I guess I understand that.
Yeah. So yeah, those 4, like Tyreek Hill, Devonte Adams, Michael Thomas, Stephon Diggs. I'm gonna make it a priority to get as much of those guys in my lineup as possible.
Sounds great.
So next we have, and what did you say about Cooper Kupp? You said he was questionable still, right?
Kupp is still a question mark. It says he should try. He's questionable and should try. And it's just a quirky situation again. He's going to try and play. And when is that game? I keep forgetting when the games are. Nonetheless, hopefully the pregame information will become clearer. But he could be a guy who goes out and plays a quarter and a half and has to limp off the field. So, but let's hope we get some more information pregame, and we can make a better decision.
So what I was thinking, just based off the game script for the Rams and Packers game, the Packers, probably should win this game. The Packers are 6.5-point favorites, and I'd assume they're going to be passing the ball. I know, Goff is a little bit beat up, but Robert Woods is going to be that guy, especially if Kupp does not play, or even if Kupp plays and he's limited, which I probably do expect here. I think Woods is going to get a lot of love from Goff. 5,900 for Woods, 5,900, and he's averaging 15.7 DraftKings points. The total's low, but I feel like he fits the game script well. I'm not scared of the Packers matchup. I think Woods is somebody to really look out for at 5,900 and probably decent-sized lower ownership.
Yeah, he's the 7th most owned receiver, 16.3. He's just above Kupp by just a fraction. Actually, they're tied. And, of course, like we said, Kupp is kind of in this la-la land, so who knows, the ownership may shift if we get dinner information. Yeah. And Woods is kind of slowed down a little bit. They're going to try and run the game, as we talked before about the running backs. But if they get down, there's going to be a point where they're going to have to flip the script.
Yeah.
And Woods could have a big game.
Yeah, don't mind Woods there at that ownership for sure.
Beautiful.
All right, so next, and I'm gonna kind of group these two together because, well, I mean, for one, they're like priced right next to each other. So Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. So I think these guys are going to go a little bit under-owned. They've been playing really well as of late. I really like the prices, 6,400 and 6,100. I think they're way too cheap. Both guys, I think, have upside, and both guys have that slate-breaking potential. And I'm going to have some ownership between the both of them. I don't know if I had to pick between one. I guess I'd go Mike Evans for more upside, but Chris Godwin, I think he has just about the same upside. Both guys averaging around the same. Godwin 16.4, Evans 16.6, and a pretty good total, a really sneaky total of 51.5, which is the second highest. I feel like these guys can go underlooked, and I feel like that's a mistake.
And they both had no injury designation as of today, so they're in pretty good shape, as you can be. I think the scare on Evans, people are probably still a little worried. He's owned at 5.6%. However, Godwin's at 6.3%, so there's really not that much difference there in the ownership. So that could be quite interesting. And New Orleans destroyed this, Tampa Bay the last 2 times they played, and even the last 4 times. So maybe you get one of those quirky Cleveland-Pittsburgh games where Tampa Bay comes out and scores a lot of points and potentially wins the game. Yeah, tempting players there.
Yeah, very true. I mean, both of them did not have a great game against the Saints the last time out, and me and Kyle talked about it Wednesday. I mean, people aren't playing Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Antonio Brown because they just don't know which one to play. I mean, it really is hard to decide which one's going to go off, but I feel like one of them definitely has the potential to go off.
That is the dilemma. Definitely the dilemma.
Yep, so the next guy I do want to talk about is going to be someone that's been on a roll as of late, and it's going to be Marquis Brown, somebody that started off the year really not good. But against Buffalo here, 50-point game total, averaging 12.3 DraftKings points, and he's been killing it as of late, averaging about 17 DraftKings points per week in his last 7 games. And it seems a little bit too cheap for how well he has been playing. Obviously, a really good stacking option if you are to play Lamar Jackson. And yeah, Brown's been doing good, so I don't mind Brown at 5,200.
Yeah. 5th owned wide receiver, 20.6%. He's pretty high owned, which makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
It definitely makes sense because these things have turned around. That is tempting, 5,200 points. I like it.
Yep.
Very attractive.
I like that a lot. And then, Watkins has been rolled out, so that's going to open up things for Robinson at 4,300, a really cheap option for the Chiefs, and you'd think he'd be that number 2 wide receiver option. Of course, they do have Hardman as well at 3,900. You have any preference between those two? If I was to pick, I'd probably go with Robinson, but I think they're both playable at those prices.
Yeah, I'd probably lean to Robinson. It's another one of those agents. He's only owned at 1.5%. Robinson
Really?
is.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me see. Where's Hardman? Oh, Hardman's actually owned at 3.9%.
So Robinson's a low. Yeah, Hardman's
maybe
a little
because
bit.
of the numbers, the salaries. Yeah. But yeah, that's relatively low owned on both of them. But yeah, maybe Robinson's a better GPP.
And then I really like Jarvis Landry, 5,600. I think all the Browns pass catchers are interesting. All of them are very cheap, and in a 57-point game total, and a game they're going to be trailing. Higgins at 4,100. Even Donovan Peoples-Jones at the minimum price at $3K is interesting. I mean, he's going to be on the field. They're probably going to be passing. I think he's a cheap option I'm looking at. So I think the Browns pass catchers are something to look out for as well.
Interesting, yeah. Landry is essentially 6% owned. He's just below Godwin. So that's in between Godwin and Evans. So, yeah, that is a very tempting play there, as he hasn't done, like you said, it's a high total. All sorts of crazy things can happen. Landry's a tough character, and he's gonna try his hard. They got a great opportunity here because they're supposed to get crushed. All this emotion, and you never know. Maybe these guys have got the mental energy to really put it together after barely getting into the playoffs and then destroying Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I mean, I was wrong about him last week, so maybe I'm wrong about him this week as well.
You did play some of their players, though, GPP, though.
Oh, yeah. I was pretty heavy in the game, and it worked out really good.
Yeah, you had a good weekend last week.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I had the Browns' defense. They scored that touchdown right away.
You picked the Browns' defense. Yeah, that was great.
I couldn't believe it either.
What's
But,
nuts?
yeah, so. Yeah. Any other person you want to point out? I mean, that's probably about it for me.
Let me ask you. Dante Harris for New Orleans. I talked about him earlier. 2.3%, 3,500. It's a quirky scenario. He's finally had a chance to play. I forget who was out. Maybe I'm wrong here. What I worry about in this game, like I said, is they're going to throw to Kamara because the game script has changed. So this guy who had this great week last week in the wild card round, he may not. But he's 2.3% owned at 3,500, so I thought I'd mention that. And I don't know, Rashard Higgins keeps getting targets from Mayfield. He likes him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's I don't think he's the most talented player on the team, obviously, as far as receiver.
Nope.
And he's at 4,100 at 2.6%. I'm not saying I like that play, but he continually gets the ball thrown to him from the quarterback, and he's low owned, and he's got a low salary.
Yep, I like it. He had 7 targets last week. Was only able to catch 2 of them, but yep, he has been getting targets.
It's tough when the ball hits you right here. It's like, just
I
kidding.
know.
I'm being mean.
No, it's all right. But yeah, I don't mind those 2 play calls as well. Harris.
One last one.
Yep.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ibab. Go ahead and finish.
I was going to say Harris, 3,500, another cheap option. Had 7 targets last week, 7 receptions. So yeah, somebody to look out for there as like a cheap play.
It's something to really consider. Like I said, I worry about the game script, but you never know. The other guy I wanted to bring up is Beasley. Beasley got hurt. He's been out a little bit. He's actually the 6th most owned wide receiver at 20%, which is down a little from the top 3. But that's a high ownership, but $4,900. And if they're in a situation where they're double teaming Diggs, there's situations where he starts getting those dumpy little passes where he ends up with 10 catches for 100 yards, even if he doesn't get a touchdown. Not sure if this is going to happen, obviously, but people obviously are putting a little more stock in him, which is something to think about because he is 20% owned.
Yeah, so last week, John Brown was really high owned, and once I found out Beasley was playing, I kind of pivoted to Beasley there. He scored 12.7. John Brown put up a goose egg last week, so maybe people are kind of upset with John Brown, and rightfully so. I mean, luckily I was able to get away from the John Brown, but Beasley outperformed him a lot.
Ironically, Brown is like the 12th most or 10th most owned wide receiver at 14.5%. So I guess there's still some people that think he'll come back. I worry a lot about that. I think maybe with the injury he's been out, but you just obviously we never know. But Beasley is this great dump-off guy, and if they get in situations where Diggs is targeted, is covered a lot, Beasley could end up getting some significant targets.
Yeah, for sure.
4,900 is a pretty decent price too.
Yep, especially if he finds the end zone as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's kind of all I had at receiver. Let me look over it. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I mean, there's
Lazard. I was just going to bring up Lazard, just so everybody know. 3,900 salary. He's the 4th most owned receiver at 24%. So there's a lot of people out there. He's well below the top 3, Hill, Adams, and Diggs, but he's the 4th owned receiver. So I think people are thinking that, well, given the price, that perhaps he can do enough to pay that price, and maybe they're going to really be guarding Devonte Adams with the Rams are, and perhaps, Lazard may be a guy who gets a few more targets this game.
Yeah, it makes sense.
That's it.
It makes sense. I mean, cheap. He's cheap. He's cheap. I guess he has some upside, but yeah.
Well, yeah, he does. Again, that 3-letter guy, MVC or whatever, he keeps having every once in a while he keeps having a great game. So it's not that obvious that Lazard's going to be the guy, nor MVC is going to be the guy. So that causes a problem.
Seems like on some weeks, out of nowhere, Scantling just gets a 50-yard touchdown out of nowhere.
Yeah, he does get some long ones.
Yeah, 6 touchdowns on the year for Scantling as well. So.
And he's 9% owned, so he's way lower owned than, not way lower owned. Yeah, he's way lower owned than Lazard.
Interesting, for sure.
About the same price, $3,800.
Yep.
So that's all the receivers I had I was kind of glancing at.
Okay, yeah, I mean, yeah, there's tons of great options at receiver. That's kind of why I want to pay down a running back this week. And speaking of paying down, another reason is to go up and get my tight end here. I mean, Travis Kelce, 7,800. I am really curious to hear the ownership on this. I feel like it's going to be something crazy because how can you not play Travis Kelce here against the Browns' passing defense that's looked awful? Really bad against the tight end. They let Eric Ebron have a really good day. And the Browns are literally one of the worst, if not the worst, against the tight end. So Travis Kelce, he's been doing it all year. 22.1 DraftKings points. The price does not scare me. Amazing matchup. No Sammy Watkins. I'm all over Travis Kelce this week.
He is the second most owned tight end at 26%.
26. I like it. Wow.
That's not bad considering the scenario. Yeah, I don't know why. Maybe the 50. Well, I'll let you go through the rest of your tight ends and be a little sneaky here. But he's proven to be so reliable.
Yes, big time.
But he's not the number one. He's the number two.
Okay, well, yeah, I'll definitely have Kelce in the majority of my lineups. But if I don't have Kelce, I think my second favorite option is going to be kind of a cheaper play here, and he's going to be 4,000 cheaper, and that's going to be Austin Hooper here, averaging 9.4 DraftKings points. A pretty good matchup here. Chiefs aren't great against the tight end, and just a really cheap play as well. And a 57-point game total in a game they should be trailing, should be throwing the ball. I remember last week Hooper had a pretty good game. I remember he dropped a couple balls too as well. Could have had an even better game. But yeah, Hooper at that price is really interesting. And I also don't hate playing Kelce and Hooper in the same lineup just based off of Hooper being way too cheap.
Yeah, that's an excellent idea. And Hooper is 2.5% owned, so there's a huge break on him in ownership, which is very helpful in GPP.
I like it. I'm curious who's the first owned tight end. I'm guessing this is gonna be my next play here, but maybe I'm wrong. Mark Andrews for Buffalo. I mean, for Baltimore going against Buffalo here, 5,000. I mean, he's going to be Lamar Jackson's number one option. He kind of busted last week, had 8 DraftKings points, but definitely can get it done here in a game they should be, maybe coming from behind. I think they are 3-point underdogs here. 50-point game total. You get a huge savings off of Kelce, 2,800. So I think Mark Andrews is somebody else I'd go to if I was to kind of pay up in a way for tight end.
And he's your guy, the number one owned tight end, 32%. So he's about 6% more owned than Travis Kelce.
Kind of surprises me because he kind of ruined a lot of people's lineups last week. He didn't ruin them, but he didn't he's only scored 8 points.
I would have thought he'd be a little lower owned. I realize he's $5,000 salary.
Yeah.
But it just hasn't worked this year for whatever reason. But you're looking at $5,000 and this guy could end up scoring, 15 to 20 fantasy points. So I think that's why. But that did surprise me. Maybe Buffalo. I didn't look at I didn't go look at the tight end stats on our site. You can go look on our site. So maybe Buffalo's poor at tight end. I'll look at that while we talk. But yeah, that one kind of surprised me that he was that high.
Yeah, so listen to this. Buffalo is 29th against the tight end from DraftKings points, so really bad there. The Browns are 30th against the tight end with DraftKings points, and the Kansas City Chiefs are actually 31st against the tight end.
Woo. Yeah, and of course we have stats here that are probably slightly different. We have Buffalo as the 5th worst at tight ends, which is close. They're bad. They're bad. So maybe that's why he's a little higher owned. That is, Mark Andrews is a little higher owned than you and I thought he would be.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. So yeah, it's those 3. I mean, there's really nobody else I'd probably play other than those 3. I think it's pretty clear to me. I mean, I don't know, Tanya. I think it's Hooper, Andrews, or Kelce for me.
Well, Tanya could be a guy, 4,200. Here's a crazy idea. Tyler Higbee, $3,000. And he's actually the 3rd most owned tight end at 14%. He's way down from the top 2 of 23 and 26%, but he is the 3rd most owned. But $3,000 is a pretty low price.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not saying I'd play him. I just thought I'd point out how low his salary and ownership are, but
I don't hate him. He's just so inconsistent, but yeah, he's cheap.
He is. Yeah, you got a hurt quarterback. I don't know if you could say, well, he's going to throw shorter, whatever. But it's it's a difficult. I like Hooper. I really like that idea with Hooper you pointed out, and a lot
Yeah, I like
a lot less ownership, so that helps.
Oh yeah. Seems like the Browns are like really like low owned, like all the Browns.
Yeah, nobody's respecting the Browns.
Yeah.
Well, you can
Understandable.
take advantage of that, right? If you believe they're
Yeah.
going to have a good offensive game, you can take advantage of that.
Yeah. So, I mean, the defense is like really, really tough this week. For me, obviously the Packers defense at 3,900 going against a beat up Jared Goff. But the problem is they're so expensive. The Bills defense at 2,900. I think that the Ravens are going to be passing a lot. Maybe that forces turnovers. Or if I was to go with the cheap one, I think the Rams defense, I guess, 45.5 point game total. They are a really good defense. I mean, they average 9.8 DraftKings points. But I guess if anything, Rams, Bills, and Packers for me, but don't love any of them, honestly.
Boy, that's a tough one this week.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money to play for. Green Bay is the number one owned defense, 36% owned, so they're way up there. Bills are 20% owned. I just don't know. I realize that Lamar Jackson threw an interception in that game last week. I just don't know about them. You know, obviously if you're behind and you got to throw, I understand that, and that's probably the theory there. I just don't see them turning the ball over a lot. But when you're down, you're down. Yeah, it's weird. Los Angeles Rams at Green Bay, third most owned. It's 19%. So what's the scenario with Green Bay? I mean, they're supposed to be leading this game. The Rams, have got a quarterback with a broken thumb and a repaired thumb, and they're going to run the ball a lot. That is the Rams. I'm trying to think of the scenario where Green Bay is going to get the turnovers. Anyway.
It's hard. It's hard.
Well, Kansas City, I realize Cleveland's been pretty good lately, but if they get way up, they could start making turnovers. And Kansas City is, 3,600? So that's a fairly high-priced defense. And they're owned at 11%.
Yeah, I mean, even last week.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was going to say, even last week, like, defenses weren't all that great, so I just punted down at the Browns defense. It worked out. I'm not doing that this week. But if I was to punt, it'd probably be the Rams, I guess. But, yeah, defense, really, it's hard to predict anything. I mean, best option probably just to be punt.
Yeah, and I'm just going to throw out these last three defense. Baltimore is the sixth owned defense, $2,800. It's relatively cheap. They're owned at 1.8%. I'm not saying, I'm just, they're low owned. Tampa Bay is owned at 0.8%, almost not owned at all. And Cleveland is the last, or hardly owned at all, at $2,300.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. It's tough, really tough this week for defense.
Be nice, but it is so nice to hit on a defense to help your overall score. You just get it. It's just so much fun, and it really makes a difference.
Yeah, big time.
All righty. Well, it's been great doing this show.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Appreciate everything. Can't wait till next year hanging out with you again, figuring things out. Maybe I'll actually spend a little more money and make a little more money. I did okay, but a lot of times I didn't. I was too busy. That's my problem. I got to get somebody to help me make sure I do my lineups.
Yeah, understandable. Yeah, it's been a great year, really great year. So hopefully end it well with a couple slates left.
Yeah. I hope to get a lineup in tomorrow morning. I don't have as much things to do. But anyway, thank you so much, and good luck to everybody listening. Should be a fun game, a fun weekend with just 8 teams playing.
Oh yeah, I'm excited.
All right, sir. Thank you, Brady.